You may be surprised to learn that only 5% of workplaces are made up of high potential employees, according to the Harvard Business Review, which in turn makes the contribution of these employees even more critical and valuable to the success of your overall operation as a leader and a company. Rick Lozano is the CEO and founder of Unlock and Amplify, where they help leaders, teams, and individuals unlock their talent and amplify their potential. With more than 20 years of experience in leadership and talent development, Lozano brings his unique blend as a high-energy speaker and talent as a singer-songwriter to ensure that organizations and his clients have every tool in their toolbox to realize their moment of prosperity and maximum productivity. Lozano joined me this week to have a discussion about diversity, equity, inclusion, talent, and leadership development. Break out your notebook. Lozano has some interesting and insightful tidbits to share. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Welcome you to the program, and I'm excited to have you on the show today and talk about music and how you help organizations and leaders reach their fullest potential. Great to see you this afternoon, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate you having me on this. Let's have this conversation. Let's have this conversation.
Yeah, so let's dive right into it, buddy. Tell me, I'm curious what it means for you when organizations and leaders maximize their fullest potential.
That's a great question. To me, in a nutshell, it means not wasting time. You think about time, we aside from health and family, time is the most precious commodity that we have. And we spend so much of our time at work. And I want to know that we are living up to our potential and not wasting time at work. And what you often hear when I talk to my HR friends, for example, you think about why people leave workplaces. My HR friends say, well, you hear some similar themes. You hear people leave because of money, people leave because of leadership. But one thing that's always there as well is people leave organizations because they didn't feel like they had an opportunity. They didn't have the opportunity to grow or to grow into their talent. And that's kind of my life's passion, is to help people create the conditions for more people to live up to that talent and to do their best work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that music's a big part of your life. And I'm curious, how does your love of music affect what you do personally and professionally? I'm curious.
Oh man, music has changed everything for me, and it changed it in ways that I didn't really expect. So background, I've been a musician all my life. It's just part of who I am. It's part of what I do. And I've always written songs and played in bands, and it was more of a hobby than anything, but it was also one of those things that I just couldn't stop doing. So I've always played music. And about 8 years ago, I had a leader who changed my life, literally changed my life. He said, Rick, you're great at 3 things. And I said, really? Just that's it? 3 things? He's like, yes, you're great at 3 things. You're great musician, you're a great speaker, and you're a great trainer. Do those three things. And I had no idea what that meant at the time. But ultimately what happened is I brought my guitar to work and I started doing speaking presentations where I used music in my presentations. And all of a sudden it connected with people. And I tried to figure out, why is this working? Why are people really latching onto this? And I think part of the reason is because music is the source of emotional connection. You think about music, you and I probably each have a song that reminds us of a special place or a special time. Music is the source of emotional connection, and it's also something that we all can align around. And when I get in a room full of people and suddenly everyone's singing along, there's nothing more gratifying than that. And I think music is indeed the language of us all. So I brought my guitar to work, and that's how I kind of got started.
Well, absolutely. If you bring your passion to work, it's not work, and the workday goes by faster, doesn't it?
It sure does. So the funny thing, there's a story here as well. I had, I was doing a keynote presentation in Columbia, South Carolina. And I had somebody come up to me after the keynote and they said, "Hey, so how do you become, a musical singing speaker guy?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. Everyone has their different approach and not everyone arrives in the same manner." So I went and I told this person my story, sort of my background and my journey. And he said, "That's hilarious. Your next keynote, you should write a song about that." And I said, "Oh yeah, that's funny." He said, No, seriously, write a song about that and call it How to Be Like Me. It's the step-by-step guide for how to be like you. So jokingly, I wrote a song. Would you like to hear it?
Absolutely.
All right. So Kevin, this is the step-by-step process. By the way, I don't take myself that seriously. This is a total joke, but the story and the journey is true. And so this is the step-by-step process for all the people listening here to the Let's Have This Conversation podcast. If you want to be a keynote speaker, here's the exact steps. All right, here we go. Oh boy, here we go. Graduate from college with a useless degree. Move to California to set myself free. Grow your hair long and join a crappy band, and that's how you be like me. Moved to Colorado with a girl who is a clown. She wasn't always a clown. She went to clown college. So there's an actual, anyway, so let's go. Moved to Colorado with a girl who is a clown. Break up because you're afraid to settle down. Move on back to Texas for a teaching degree, and that's how you be like me. Move back to Colorado for a woman that you met. Struggle for the bills because you don't have a job yet. Marry then divorce, see how easy this can be. That's how you be like me. All right, here's where it gets complicated. Pay close attention. Quit teaching, move to banking, quit banking, back to teaching, quit teaching, back to banking, get a job teaching banking. See how that works? Stay a corporate trainer because you love what you do. Work for a tech code, try something new. No more suits and ties on your body, you will see. And that's how you be like me. Find the love of your life, get married, celebrate. She thinks this song is stupid, but I think it's really great. Become a singing speaker who teaches how to lead, and that's how you be like me. Oh yeah, that's how you be like me. One more time, that's how you be like me. That's how you be like, that is the step-by-step process for how to be like me. I hope you take that as a total joke again, but so yeah, that's kind of the journey of how I got here, and music sort of changed everything for me.
Well, I can see that, and thank you for the diversity of perspective this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Indeed. It's, I've got something different, a little bit different to offer, so that's what I'm going to do.
Absolutely. Rick, I don't know if you saw this about me, but I was born with what's called spastic quadriplegia cerebral palsy. And part of my background before I hosted this podcast was helping individuals with disabilities find employment. So I'm curious to ask you, particularly because we just finished in October, National Disability Employment Awareness Month. So I'm curious, how do you think we can better define universal diversity and inclusion for folks with disabilities in the workspace?
That's a great question. And first off, thank you for helping other people and being an inspiration to so many people. When I think about the point of diversity and inclusion, whether it's, for people who are differently abled or different races or genders, to me, the goal really has to be about interrupting our pre-programmed thoughts, right? My friend, Stacy Gordon, I met her at a conference several years ago, and Stacy wrote a book called Unbiased, which is all about unconscious bias. And, I think what I love about the idea of unconscious bias is that it inherently includes all of us. We all do it to some degree. We are programmed in such a way that we all have these unconscious behaviors or thought patterns that sometimes slip into our treatment of others in the way that we view people. And we've got to start by interrupting that. I think the other thing that we need to do is acknowledge that the infrastructure doesn't necessarily give everyone the same opportunities. We talked about opportunities earlier, and whether it's an opportunity or whether it's access from access to success, access to a physical location standpoint, to me, diversity and inclusion is really about helping make sure that everyone has the same access, the same opportunities. And when I think about diversity and inclusion, to me, the goal is when everyone more or less have the same or equal opportunities. And we have to look at the infrastructure for how we fix that. We've got to look at the way things are baked into the way we go about daily lives and the misconceptions that are around it. And I'll give you one specific example. I live in the United States, and there's a lot of schools of thought on diversity and inclusion. And one of the ways that D&I gets a bad rap is some people interpret it to think that they're losing something. In order for other people to elevate it, they've got to be taken, something has to be taken away from them. And I don't think that's the goal. To me, the goal isn't taking away from anybody. And, they say things like, well, I worked hard to get where I'm at. I wasn't handed anything. And that may be true. That may be true. But I think what also needs to be acknowledged is that same hard work and that same hard effort wouldn't have necessarily gotten someone else from a different demographic the same outcomes. So we have to look at where are we placing the starting lines for people? What obstacles are different that are in our way? And we've got to acknowledge that it's there. It's a real thing. And again, the goal to me is that everyone has equal opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And my next follow-up to that is, how do you think we can connect with a wider group of people to make sure that they make the most impact at work? Because there are trigger points I call them trigger points to productivity for every person, because every person is different, right? So how do you think we can better connect with people and meet them where they are so that they can maximize their productivity at work?
I think part of that is recognizing that different isn't a bad thing. Different is just unfamiliar. And we want to create a place where, I used to hear in the early days when diversity and inclusion became a thing in corporate America, you used to hear about tolerance. And we've got to be tolerant of each other. And that was kind of version 1.0 to me. Version 3.0 is it's not just about tolerating people, it's about celebrating people. It's about accepting people and learning from those differences. And to me, part of that is by being naturally curious. When I hear or see someone different from me, I want to know more about them. Why do they operate the way they do? What is their background? What unique qualities do they have that I can learn from? And it takes a certain amount for everyone, a certain amount of willingness to say, the world isn't just my world, right? The world doesn't revolve around me. There's people who have had completely different experiences than I have. And those experiences, while they may be unfamiliar, they're equally valid. And they're also something that I, as a human being, can learn from. I don't know, you don't know this about me, but I'm also a scuba diver. And when I first started scuba diving, my wife and I, we learned a lot about different species of fish. And what was insane in the fish population was there were anomalies in nature that a lot of people in humans would say, oh, that's weird. Let me give you a specific example. A long time ago, people say, well, this whole idea of LGBTQ and these sorts of things, they're really weird to me. It's not natural. And what I saw when I became a scuba diver was these same things, this fluidity of gender, for example, exists in nature. It is natural. There's one species of parrotfish, for example, that begins as a male, and at the end of its life, it turns into a female. And the reproductive cycle exists all within one fish. And that to me is not only amazing and worth celebrating, but it's also something that I used to say, look, it's natural. You're just not familiar with it. And it's okay to be uncomfortable, but it's more okay, it's better to be curious and to celebrate those things that are natural about all of us. And I think those are some ways that we can connect with other people by just being curious and celebrating that uniqueness that we all have.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, again, going back to music, you wrote a book called Acoustic Leadership, and you want to help people develop strategies to amplify their potential at work. So tell me all about the book and the message behind it.
Yeah, thank you. So the book, Acoustic Leadership, is my take on how we help develop leaders and develop more effective leaders in our organizations. And one of the first things that I really focus on is that we have leaders in our companies without titles. And you hear people talk all the time about, well, there's a difference between management and leadership, and that's true. But what we don't often do is we don't often give the same opportunities to people who aren't in those formal leadership positions. So my idea is that we've got to develop a culture where people with or without titles can live up to their potential as leaders. And so the book, the way that it came about, of course, I'm a musician, and one day I was watching old reruns of MTV Unplugged. Do you remember MTV Unplugged? Yeah. So MTV Unplugged was this program that went on starting in the early 90s, and it was all these famous musicians who basically got rid of their amplifiers and their light shows, and they gave these really intimate acoustic performances. And as I was watching these famous, brilliant people, Eric Clapton and Stevie Ray Vaughan and the 10,000 Maniacs, when they were doing these acoustic shows, they were really good. They resonated, and there was something that was really valuable there. And what I realized was there was three things that were making these performances stand out, and they were simplicity, authenticity, and opportunity. Simplicity, it was scaled back, it was minimalistic, it was on acoustic instruments. Authenticity, it was the real deal. They couldn't hide behind light shows and crazy guitar effects. It was intimate and raw. And then finally, opportunity. It was an opportunity for them to play something different in a different way. It was an opportunity for the audience to hear something different. It was also an opportunity in some cases, for example, Nirvana, when they did their MTV Unplugged, they used it as an opportunity to highlight other people's music. They played a bunch of other people's music. They gave people an opportunity to be heard. And for whatever reason, those three factors I realized in the world of leadership development, those three things are really simple. And they're also things that can really help us develop effective leaders. Let's make it simple for people to do their best work. Let's develop authentic, real relationships of trust and accountability. And then finally, let's give other people an opportunity to develop into their potential. And let's give people without titles an opportunity to lead. So that's kind of the basis of the book. And yeah, I throw in a little bit of musical ideas and some background on music as well along the way. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, fabulous. And I'm also curious to ask you your perspective on how we develop transformational leaders that care about employee engagement.
Yeah. So that's a good question. And I think transformational leaders, when they focus on employee engagement, this is a multi-pronged thing. You can't just have, big parties and throw people money and say we're either getting rid of our dress code. those are elements of culture that can help create engagement, but that's not all there is to it. To me, engagement on an individual basis, first of all, everyone's going to define that differently. What defines you at work, what you consider engaging is going to be different than what I consider engaging. And we have to realize as leaders, as executives, that engagement lives in the experience of the individual. We can't just, cookie or butter spread solutions and think that it's going to apply to everyone, because everyone's going to approach this in a different manner. To me, engagement is a combination of two things. There's an emotional component and there's a psychological component. The emotional component says, I like this place. This place is fun. This place it feels good. I have friends here. The other part is the psychological commitment that says, you know what? This is where I'm supposed to be right now. This is the work that I'm supposed to be doing. I have choices of where I work, and I choose to be here. So as leaders, we've got to address both of those components and the cultural umbrella that it's all underneath. So we've got to create a culture that enables that engagement where people feel emotionally connected. They like it. They feel good. They have support. They have friends, but also they know that this place is right for them. And to me, a lot of that is to the previous conversation, knowing that people knowing that they have an opportunity to grow. So emotional connection, psychological commitment.
Yeah, the value of human connection will be never underappreciated again after the pandemic, huh?
Oh, no. You know what's funny about this too? I was thinking about this before you and I got on the call. One thing the pandemic did do in this world of Zoom, it kind of leveled the playing field. Mm-hmm. And it also people got to see this other side of people that they normally wouldn't. I mean, you've probably seen the videos on TikTok and YouTube where, people's dogs jump into the Zoom window and stuff. And people got to have a lens literally into other people's life, a lens into their home and their families and their pets and their children. And what that did was it created a sort of humanistic, it wasn't all great, don't get me wrong, but I think that it connected people in a different way. They were able to see the human side of each other. And the other thing that was funny, I do a lot of virtual training. I have for years and years and years. The way that people finally said, why am I dressing up? I remember when we first started Zooming, people would show up in suits and ties, to work in their home office like I am right now. And after a while, people are like, why am I doing that? I'm in my own home. Why am I wearing a suit to stand in my bedroom and give a presentation? And so after a while, people said, I'm going to wear what I wear at home. I'm going to wear a t-shirt and jeans. And again, it was that humanity, that vulnerability, that authenticity. And I think that connected us. That was one of the bright sides of all of this, this pandemic era that we've lived through.
Absolutely. And to that end, I'm also curious, Rick, to ask you about how do you reignite the passion and purpose as people head back to the office and get motivated to go back to work?
That's a great question. And I have a different sort of angle than a lot of the thoughts that I hear. To me, let's talk about passion first. You hear people say, you've got to follow your passion. And some people know what that is. Some people are like, oh yeah, I've been passionate about this my whole life. I'm going to keep doing that. And other people, I talk to people who are going, I don't know what my passions are. What am I supposed to do? And to me, that's okay. You don't need to know. You don't necessarily need to know, because what I've realized is passion is the result of action. You're passionate about something because you did it. You are passionate about your podcast because you started it and you continued it. Passion is the result of action. My wife and I, we're passionate scuba divers now, almost 200 dives in, because one day we said, we're going to start doing something. We're going to create our passion. So I think that's thing number one, is people have to realize that sometimes in order to ignite that passion, that's on you. You've got to take action. And if that doesn't work, do something else. Because the second part is engagement, again, lives in the experience of the individual, and we can't outsource that equation. I can't only say, well, leaders need to engage me. Well, hopefully we've got engaging leaders in our workplaces, but there's a part you play too. There's a decision you make in how you show up, how you take actions to create those passions, and ultimately, to be honest, if this isn't the right place, leave. We have choices, and passion is the result of action. Let's make choices that develop that passion by taking action.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Rick, and my final question for you this afternoon has to do with your own personal and professional passion and legacy and how you want that to be defined.
I want to know that I did my part to help other people. And you know, it's interesting in the work that I do because, you know, as a facilitator, as a trainer, as a keynote speaker, sometimes I show up and I talk to people or I lead a workshop and then I don't see them again. And so, you know, I hope that what we did was impactful and I hope it meant something, but I don't always have that feedback loop. A couple of years ago, I was doing a keynote presentation in Long Beach, California. And, you know, I did what I did. It was a presentation called Amplify Your Impact. And about 3 months later on LinkedIn, somebody sent me a message and they said, hey, Rick, we met at that conference. I was in your audience at that presentation that you did. And you inspired me. You inspired me to quit my job and start my own business. And so she wrote this blog post that was all about how she found this inspiration to go and start her own consulting firm. And she basically reached out and said, thank you. And I was like, no kidding. Holy moly, I actually did have an influence on some. That's really cool. And it's funny because when I began noticing that, when that happened, suddenly I started seeing it in other places. People reaching out and saying, hey, what you told me about this made a difference. And Kevin, I think the point here is we all influence people in different ways. And we don't always know, and we're not always aware of the impact we have on others. And I think that's important because I want to know that when I impact other people, it's in a positive direction. I'm helping them grow, I'm helping them learn, and I'm not always going to know the influence that I had, but I want to make intentional steps to show up every day and try and help people. And that's why I started my own company, to help people unlock and amplify their talent and potential as a leader, as a team, as organizations. I don't need to be rich and famous. If I am, hey, cool. But what I do want to know is that I lived up to my own potential by helping other people live up to theirs.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, tell me, if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
They can reach out to me. ricklozano.com is my website. My email is rickl@ricklozano.com. The book is Acoustic Leadership, Develop a Leadership Culture That Resonates. You can go to Amazon to find that, or my website. Yeah, and those are the easiest way. And of course, LinkedIn, you could reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. I wrote a song about LinkedIn. Would you like to hear that?
Sure. In the couple of minutes we have left, absolutely.
So by the way, Kevin, one of the things that I want to know, you talked about legacy, is I want to help people smile. I want to help people laugh. And, you know, if I could do that with my guitar in hand, that's what I'm going to do. I have this knack for writing songs that are kind of humorous and funny. So I'm going to keep doing it because that's what I have to give to the world. All right. So here's the story. So I was looking at LinkedIn a while back, and I started thinking about the way people reach out on LinkedIn. And there's so many, sales pitch after sales pitch after sales pitch. And I decided to write a song about, basically directly from some of the sales pitches that I got on LinkedIn. So this is called I'd Love to Connect. Here we go. All right. Hey there, Rick. I'd love to connect. No, you don't know me. We've never met. But based on your profile, you seem to be someone who should be connecting with me. As a full-service investment firm, we are actively seeking acquisition targets and middle market buyers. Are you open to a brief 5 to 10 minute call? And that's the short version of that sales pitch. Here we go. Hey there, Rick. Do you have some time? In just 20 minutes, I'm sure that you'll find our B2B solution cuts through the mess and directly enables your business success. I work for an investment firm, and we just launched a new accelerator program that helps early stage companies get to market better, faster, and cheaper. Do do you have time for a chat? But Kevin, when you don't respond, sometimes things get a little dark. Hey there, Rick, you have yet to reply. I'm following up as I'm curious why. Unlimited success for a nominal fee. You really should be connecting with me. Don't you want to be successful? No, here's the thing. Your approach is all wrong. Almost like something in a parody song. I'm not even remotely a fit. Did you look at my bio? Do you give a shit? You didn't even try to figure out who I am. This message is headed directly to spam. Hey, meeting planner. My name is Rick. I'm a dynamic speaker who might do the trick at your zoology convention in Orlando next fall. Would it make sense if we jumped on a call? Hey there, Rick. I'd love to connect. So if people want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that's where you can also find me.
And make sure they read your profile before they connect, right?
Please do.
Well, Rick, I want to thank you for your interactive and energetic time and conversation with me today. Your work in the space of leadership is most appreciated. And I want to thank you for taking my questions and your time on my behalf. It's most appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate you having me on the show, and thank you for everything that you do. And I hope everyone enjoyed it. Thank you.